So I spent much of 2024 becoming familiar or refamiliarizing myself with the issues surrounding ethical recruitment and quality assurance amongst education agencies. And I spent, as we all do over the Christmas time, reflecting on the year just past and the year ahead. And what I really dwelt on is, why has agency quality assurance been an issue for the industry for 35 years, from the very beginnings of international education mobility at scale, right through to the present day, and it's just lingered as a problem. And obviously, my first conclusion was, well, it's a very, very difficult nut to crack. And then I thought about the various initiatives that have been taken in the sector around the world over the course of time. And it just set me thinking about what is the right size piece of the jigsaw that the industry hasn't yet been able to find. And that set me down a route of, if you like, values or characteristics that I felt were required for success and to engender trust. And I know it sounds sort of pretty unglamorous, but I just sat down and scribbled out 5, 6, 7 different precepts, really, that I felt were essential and that I felt had been lacking, not in everything that was out there, but in aspects of what were out there. Some initiatives had failed because they hadn't consulted. Some initiatives had failed because they were for profit, and I just cannot see for profit working, for example, in the United States, not in the area of standards and quality assurance. So I wrote down 6 things. It's got to be not for profit. It has to be completely market neutral and segment neutral. It can have no alignment whatsoever to any of the industry segments, whether that's agencies or providers or service providers. And it can't have a political or geographical alignment to one country. It can only work, and here we sort of come on to one of the other things, is that if it is global. And that, of course, then, that's a huge challenge, but it automatically implies, well, it's got to be collaborative and cooperative. If you want it to be global, then you have to have buy-in from stakeholders. And ultimately, in order for any quality assurance mechanism to work really well, it needs global buy-in, and we've seen that from plenty of other examples from out of the sector. And thinking about the other weaknesses that I felt there were in the various schemes, for example, none of them had really looked out of the sector to examples of industries that had had to wrestle with similar or analogous things. And so I thought it was very important that whatever we do, we take note of things like, for example, financial services compliance. There is a very good example of an industry that had to address commission-based selling and the abuses that led to. Well, that's very analogous to some of the things that are happening in international education. And that sort of, I suppose, further led me to, whatever we do, it's got to have regulatory chops. It cannot be another homegrown solution. It's got to have practitioners involved who know what good looks like in the quality assurance space, because they have done it in other sectors, such as financial services and so on. And then one other thing, and that is that I felt that compliance and quality assurance had to be our one job in life. We have to have a singular purpose and not do anything else, not have any other activities to be concerned about or to have to nourish, not have the distraction of numerous other streams of business, but for us to focus on one thing and one thing only. And that sort of led me to a one-pager, really. And then I tried that out on about 15 or so people whose judgments I really value, and they told me I was on the right lines. Yes and no is the answer to that. I have been very surprised at aspects of the traction that we've got with particular stakeholders, so for example the UK government, but equally also with other global peak bodies in for example Canada. What I have also been surprised by, and I suppose slightly disappointed, was that, for example, we weren't able to get the funding sooner than we have, and we've only just now begun to get the funding to get it off the ground. Oh, that's easy. I think that was when, to our astonishment, our technical delivery partners, Lenari, actually delivered the prototype of the platform as part of our pitch. At that point, we could see all of our ideas realised, and it had life. It was. I've recently seen the latest version of Frankenstein, and it was like that electrifying moment where the monster came to life. Actually, it began to feel real before then, and I think the moment for me when it really began to feel real was about 3 weeks after we'd announced that we were doing GERSA and we'd incorporated it and so on, and I went to NAFSA. And what I could not believe was the number of people who came up to me and were familiar with what we were doing, and they wanted to talk to me about it, they wanted to know more. And it was at that, obviously we didn't have a platform then still, but I knew it resonated, and I knew that was real. That was a quickening moment. I'm only pausing because I'm just trying to think if there are any more surprising things to the two that I'm going to mention. And they're both about unexpected buy-in. And the first of those is from UK government departments. I was very surprised by how receptive they were initially to what we were proposing, and how they've helped us very constructively develop our thinking from that point onwards, right through to their willingness to look at the demonstration of the prototype and to start giving us feedback about what they felt about that. And the other very surprising thing has been the positivity of agents and agencies. We've had as many agents and agencies come to us to volunteer to be part of the prototyping project and the next phase, as we have examples of institutions. And they speak with a common voice and theme on this, which is they recognize the issues, but they want to distinguish themselves from any perception of being a bad actor. They want to champion quality assurance because they see it in the best interests of the sector and indeed themselves, generally. I think that's the assembly of the team and the advisory board. We set out with no money, we set out with an idea, and we've got buy-in in our founding team from some extraordinarily talented individuals from precisely the backgrounds that I was hoping that they would have. And they've come along with us, and they've contributed to the journey in a number of different ways. And in addition to what you can see on the website, we've got a couple of elves in the background who have also been quietly working away on what we're doing because they believe in it. Now, it's an extraordinary feeling to have people volunteer their precious time to an idea, and that feels great. And similarly, when I look at the composition of our advisory board, I mean, these are luminaries around the world. We've got Eddie West, the man who wrote the book on agency management. We've got a member of the board of CBIE. We've got a member of the board of AIEA, or not just board, sorry, president-elect. These are people who are hardwired into their policy settings, and it's a tremendous privilege to get their buy-in and have them working for us and advocating for us. Oh, getting people's ear. People are busy, right? And to begin with, all you do have is an idea, and it's yeah, come on, Nick. And then it's, well, I think that's really too ambitious. I think you should be limiting your idea to just the UK or just institutions and agencies, and not include students. So a lot of skepticism. And then if there was skepticism amongst individuals, there's even greater collective skepticism when you approach peak bodies, and they don't really know what you're doing, and are you trying to eat their lunch, and all of that kind of thing. And our sector moves slowly, but equally, I've got to recognise that people are busy. They've got, very, very busy day jobs, and compliance and agency quality assurance isn't probably their number one priority, although that may be an issue. No, not everything's been anticipated. And I think the biggest surprise of all was in speaking to some senior people in all of the destinations at peak body level, who absolutely recognise that the optimum solution is a global one. It is not a national one that just meets the interests. Everybody recognises that even if they champion their own policy setting, there is a risk then that bad practice moves to another policy setting, or isn't totally eliminated simply because it can't exist, let's say, in the Australian policy setting. So I think the recognition that a global solution has, I'm delighted, but that has surprised me the most. Oh, hugely. From the detailed technical inputs into the initial build of the platform, through to learnings from other industries and non-profit organisations, corporate and social responsibility, talking to our general counsel about setting up, in his case, setting up the Quality Assurance Agency in Higher Education and the Office of the Independent Adjudicator. So those have been really, really important. And then learning really almost from the start that each of the policy settings is very, very different and has to be approached in a different way, and has to have recognition of its own nuances. So, for example, this isn't particularly nuanced, but Canada's got 10 provinces, 10 autonomous provinces, and and 3 other territories. So that's an stratified policy in a way that it simply isn't here. And in America, there's almost religious resistance to for profit within the higher education sector. So I think drawing those learnings in from a very early stage has been hugely important. Well, one of my learnings when I was thinking back towards that thinking last Christmas was that a number of initiatives failed because, or haven't been as successful as they could be, because they weren't consultative from the outset. And the sector, any sector, does not like having something foisted upon it when it's had no input whatsoever to its development. So I think that was definitely one key thing. I think another one is the student-first approach. It has been axiomatic from the beginning that whatever we do at GERSA has to have a direct benefit on students. And I'm not talking about, just by raising standards, you provide an intangible benefit down the line to students. I'm talking about the ability for a student to get on their smartphone and check whether or not the agency office that they're about to walk into has been accredited, has had the counsellor training that you would hope for about the destination you're interested in, has had the trainings in the programs and the institutions that you're interested in. That, it seems to be me, would be a step change, whereas a lot of what the sector's focused on is simply the management of the institution relationships between agents. Yeah, no, I think there is one particular thing, which is we do now have a date that our technical delivery partners have committed to for the full operational launch. That could only have been a guess by us at the outset, and we simply didn't know. But no, now we know that in the middle of 2026, we are going to be launching the full operational GERSA platform. So that feels really real and tangible. I think it's this. We are real and we exist, and we've got prototype of the platform, we've got backers, we've got founding partners, and we're going to acquire more of those over the first quarter of next year. We've got an executive team, we've got a nearly complete advisory board, we've got buy-in from government departments through to individual education providers, universities, agencies, money transfer platforms. And I guess my message is, look, we are here. Please engage with us. We're not here to eat anybody else's lunch. What we're here to do is to fix a problem that the sector has had for the last 35 years, for the benefit of all stakeholders, but above all, for the key people in this, the students.